different, you know, young women who've gone through this particular ordeal. And, you know, she has, you know, her voice, and her voice is strong, and she's doing more than just, you know, sitting down with affairs. And then also we were speaking to Ivan. Ivan is a Ugandan filmmaker who is speaking, or taking the angle where we have individuals who witness GBV and say nothing about it. They're just quiet, and then they end up becoming basically, you know, the thing that they hate the most. You know, when you're quiet about something, it eats you up until you actually become it. So he becomes in the movie a literal monster. You need to see this, and we'll also be showcasing it right here, you know, on K24. And of course, Mungai here is, you know, a producer from DocuBox. He puts this whole conversation into perspective. Right, so I'll just let you finish up, Tim, on what you're saying, you know, right before the break. I think we were looking at, you know, the angle of debriefing, how you've not come out of this feeling, you know, of making something so heavy, and you have to walk around, and this heaviness, you know, is still in you.
Yeah, I think every film, especially when you're working with human beings, like, you're not, like, it's not characters you've drawn and you're trying to bring them into life. It's the documentary is a different process where you have to earn the trust, and you have to actually get in the life of the people who you're trying to make a film about. And I still feel like I'm still in this film, despite the fact I'm really trying to move on. But I think that it's a very, very important situation. So me and Jackie and the organization that she runs, it's called Grace Agenda. We're trying to work out a website in a way that we can share the film to even a much more bigger audience.
I see.
And talk about not just her, but also bring to life, because I only had like a few minutes to talk about in the film, and so I picked her story. But as I was doing research, there are so many more stories
very many
that are really tough to swallow. But at the same time, it is the strength and the mental fortitude of these women that allowed me to make the film. I wouldn't be able to have a film now if these women were not there to hold
fortitude.
it. To hold me, to tell me like, it's okay, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Mungai, what's eerie, I know you'll speak about it, but what's so eerie about this film is that constant figure, you know, dressed all covered up beside these women. It just shows you that this is something that doesn't leave these individuals. You know, it's just constantly there. It doesn't matter. It was beside Jackie, the main character. It was beside these other ladies who she's also supporting. It was just constantly there. Until I remember when I was watching the film, I'm like, can this thing move? Because it does something to your head. And, you know, the worst thing is this is actually someone's life that they lived. You know,
it is, and it's a life that they live every single day.
Yeah.
But then in terms of the character that we see, the figure that we see, I definitely think that that's something that Tim needs to talk about, because I remember that's one of the things that came in way later. I think even towards the end of the editing workshop is when the figure came to mind. And I think you might be the best person to talk about why you chose to go that way.
That eerie figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we go to Tim, Ivan, you know, in Uganda, to also tell us about his monster figure and the witch doctor, or the symbolic, you know, traditional doctor. Yes.
I think this was a really last resort. It's purely experimental, and I remember, like, me and the editor Gidwa, like, we were just sitting and like. The film was supposed to be about dance. It was about like going to the streets. We had even dancers, ballet and contemporary dance.
The original concept.
The original concept. We even filmed in the city. We did everywhere. Like, we went everywhere to film and tried to create this. We wanted to show that it's a conversation that's constantly happening. But slowly by slowly, we started realizing that the story was taking shape in a way that it is this constant thing that Jackie is looking for. That figure represents justice. And it's the injustice that was done to her and what she's still trying.
The figure that's covered up represents justice.
It represents the injustice.
The injustice, yes. I was like, wow, yeah.
So it's her quest for justice. So every time you see her, it's also it's a play. where you are like, even when she's talking, she's doing her dishes, you can see that it's there, and it's a constant thing that she's always seeking for, and that is justice. And the embodiment of injustice, I was just wondering what we would do. Like, how do you show the injustice, you know? And so I think that's how it came to be, to create that. And when we filmed and did a lot of like tests, then she was okay with it. It was a bit scary in the beginning, even for her.
Yeah, even for her.
Even for her, she wasn't like, she wasn't really sure what we are trying to do.
I see.
And so that is my way of like showing how do I symbolically address an injustice.
I see.
And her quest for what she's trying to find.
I mean, that figure, even as you're beginning to watch, I'm sure our audience will eventually watch it. When she's talking, like you feel like there's something, you know, there at the doorway, and you cannot seem to get exactly what this thing is until she continues speaking, like, oh, I see.
That's what it is.
The constant, you know, ghost, the constant thing that keeps, you know, basically playing, you know, in the background of your life, or, you know, but I'd like to ask Ivan, you know, Ivan is joining us, like I mentioned, all the way from Kampala. Ivan, you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Right. Ivan, let's take a look at now figuratively how you came up with, like in the film, you have the newspaper, and this particular individual is looking, and he says that he can find answers from a traditional healer, right? And then towards the end of the film, you're seeing that eventually, after the assault, because he was, you know, assaulted in a way, and he eventually went and sought, you know, help from this traditional healer, and he was told that his problem is not per se physical, but a spiritual matter. And then now eventually, he didn't become better, he became worse. He literally transformed into something that you and I, if we came across, we would run the other way, right? So just take us through the process of, you know, how you came up with this.
Like the way I've explained, that's the way how the story goes. But mostly, it happens that when he sees this take place and he doesn't act, this comes in as a consequence of his inaction. So he tries to look for answers, and then afterwards, from that newspaper, that's where he finds the right person who could help him, and that's when he goes there, and then he's told the truth of everything which is happening, what is going to be happening to him. So we see that he finally becomes that creature, but at the end, he's given a redemption to go and do the right thing. So mostly we left it open-ended, showing that it's a decision, like maybe as individuals, if you find something taking place, what will you do? So it's a conversation opener of what will you do.
All right. Why did you also decide to highlight this very important matter about your, you know, like your psycho-social dynamic, or basically your physical and spiritual dynamic together? You can't separate the two, right? So if someone is watching, they'll see the reference that apart from this just being a physical thing, it happens in your mind so much that it shows up on your body, right?
Yeah.
So why did you also decide to delve into that? Because most of the time we'll have these conversations and we'll speak about the psychological bit, but not as much, you know, emphasis is put on the spiritual bit also.
Yeah. So when you look at the whole storyline, it's more of it's a spiritual thing. When you look at it, it's like at the end you feel like it's something more in his head. It's more of in his guilt. So we look like he's looking for answers. As the film goes on, he's looking for answers. What is happening to him? It's like it's driving him crazy. He wants to find answers. So he will try to find anything which is find anything which could help him. You know, he's desperate, and this when he finds this. So you find that it's what's happened to him, as even though it's manifesting as a physical thing, you find it's spiritual in some way, and then you find like when he goes to this spiritual healer, he can see far to know that it's a spiritual thing which is happening to him, and he tells him what's going to turn him into. Yeah,
I see. I get you. I mean, it's a very deep conversation. You know, even when Tim here was just speaking about the other angle, which is even as filmmakers, leave alone you know, the individuals who you're getting to tell their stories or to narrate these particular stories. It's heavy. You know, there was no one, you know, thing, you know, or film in this Get Real campaign that is just simple. Even in simplicity, there's heaviness, there are issues, there are aspects.
It is heavy, and even from the very initial workshop that we had, I think from that workshop, that's when we realized, man, we're in for a journey. It's going to be one long year. Yeah. But then, again, like Timothy said, it's also our job as filmmakers to help amplify voices of people. That's, I mean, besides entertaining, which we also do sometimes, but then there are stories out there that need to be told, and that's the job that we do as filmmakers. That's part of what we do at DocuBox, finding the stories and putting them out there for people to see. And yeah, you do have to sort of like be careful about your own sort of like mental headspace. Because one moment your team knows, one moment you're working on a documentary on SRHRJ, the next thing you're doing something on street kids or people, street families, you know, and yeah, again, you do end up carrying a lot of these things, and I think it's that self-care is important. Having the right support group, whether it's within the organization, your community of filmmakers, or a professional, it helps a lot, because it can get relatively heavy from time to time.
Right. You know, Tim, there's this notion also, and it may be ignorant or not, but you could tell us better, that there's a section of society that is very fecal in dealing with issues like this, right? You know it's there. Maybe some of them have even gone through when they were even younger or older. It doesn't matter. But when it comes to like even just sitting down to consume such information or, you know, something like this, it's hard for them. But they would prefer the others. You know, like, so someone would come up to you like, why are you making deep things? Don't you think we already have problems from economy to politics to war? You know, can you just give us a break and give us something? So am I right? Is there some ignorance, or do we actually have people who want to have these issues dealt with?
I think it's really, it's a choice of everyone. It's an option. I mean, a film, conversations that are tough, there should be options, and so that people could be able to get there, to be able to make informed choices, so that they could make decisions based on, like, when you present something, if it wasn't there, it would not be an option. And I feel like it's really important that we are not just passive observers, but we are also actively involved in the conversations that we want to have and the things that we want to change in our lives. And I feel like if we don't speak out and if we don't make these kind of stories, then it means that we are also complicit.
As a creative industry.
Yeah.
Right. Point taken. I'll ask you the same thing. About the perspective of, I mean, it's a workshop that you all did last year, and we've seen the magnitude and the impact that this has made so far in these different counties, especially when we were in Nyeri, and you saw the real examples of these women in leadership, but they have one or the other, you know, experience when it comes to rape, you know, and these are your leaders. These are people who are sitting there. So you see, you cannot assume that just because people are well dressed or put together that these issues may not affect. But like I mentioned to him, there's also, quote unquote, the ignorance of, listen, we don't want to deal with that. Let's just stay with this thing. It's not broken, so why fix it? You know.
I mean, again, and Nyeri is a testament to what you're saying, that, I mean, if we don't talk about them, if we don't talk about these issues, we won't know how deep the roots of the issues are. And again, as Tim says, one might choose to be ignorant about what's happening in the world around them, or you can choose to be an active participant in helping to build a better society. because even if it doesn't affect you directly, it will affect you in some way, or at least somebody who's close to you.
Right.
And I think as a human society that's also evolving, it's our responsibility and our duty to do better for us and for those who are going to come after us. Otherwise, then why complain when things go wrong if you're not willing to help someone who's next to you? Why complain about the economy if you're not willing to take action on something that you yourself can change?
Actually see, you know, so what can you say is the role of creatives when it comes to this particular matter? Because we've come a long way, and film is a very powerful medium because all of us watch. You know, you'll go somewhere, and if it's something that is you know, catching your attention, you'll watch it on whichever social media platform. It doesn't matter, you know, and everything has been designed for you to consume, right? So what can you say is the role of the creative industry, apart from now the entertainment bit, which is the obvious bit in different ways, when it comes to matters like this? Tim?
I would say that I'm an observer, and I try to present like whatever that I see and my perspective in life. I try to curate it in the best possible way, and how the community that consumes this context takes it, it's really their responsibility to either run or learn.
I see.
You know, it's basically that will inform their choices and decisions moving forward. And I feel like the creative economy is a really, really good space where we get to bring forth like even hard topics, not just what we're talking about right now, but everything that is wrong with the world.
It's right in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, essentially that is what it is, like, because we say here that art is a very powerful medium, and we have seen, you know, through this campaign, the responses of people. It doesn't matter what language. As soon as the audience was able to understand, even in Mombasa, what the film was about, especially when we were showcasing the aspect of culture and sex education, you know, how young men are brought up, how young women are brought up, and then eventually how those particular aspects affect them in this modern day society. I mean, the audience was part of it, you know, of the conversation.
And let's not forget that we're also documenting a moment in time. I mean, of course, we know that as Africans, we always had this oral history of telling our stories and our cultures orally. I think we shouldn't take for granted the fact that we have these tools, modern tools, cameras and things that are very accessible now, that we can use to document this moment in time and the things that are happening now, whether it's for learning later down the line, for future generations or what have you. But that's something that I think a lot of filmmakers and people take for granted, that we are documenting a moment in time for posterity.
I see. By the way.
For posterity. And whether it's something difficult like SRHRJ or something positive or even something entertaining, it is us documenting our history for the future as well. I think we normally forget that that's something else.
No, that's a very cool point. You know, it's like it's obvious, but it's not. Right, and I just want to give our, you know, a filmmaker, director, Ivan, just a few minutes, literally just a few minutes. Ivan, if you could just give us your final thoughts on this conversation.
My final thoughts about the conversation is more of like the themes of our film's show, mostly trying to fight gender-based violence and trying to stand up. Like when you see something happening, sexual assault or anything of gender-based violence, try to stand out. Like try to use whatever means you can. You know, if you don't have the physicality to help, maybe try to call someone, maybe try to do something at least, you know, not just ignoring it. So mostly I'm very thankful for the Get Real project for giving an opportunity like this to try to put out these films to our population, to our communities, and we are hoping that it's gonna make a huge change. Yeah.
Oh, actually it is, Ivan. We've seen it. Trust me, on the ground, the audience can't lie. They literally just, speak of the experiences. But thank you so much as filmmakers to, basically doing this. We appreciate it. And of course, our conversation comes to an end right now. Thank you so much for joining us. In studio, we've had with us Mungai Kiroga, producer DocuBox, Tim Waura, director Redline, and Ivan Tusabe, all the way from Kampala, Uganda, director of the film Jimbi. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Remmy Majala. Thank you guys for coming through, taking us a creative process. We'll be back, of course, with you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah.
Mr. DJ Lucky. When it comes